There,
Okay, we are live.
second time's a charm.
Okay. Like to call to order the City of Twin Oaks Board of Aldermen meeting for June 25th, 2025. Please stand for Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call roll, please.
Alderman Cruzen,
Here.
Mayor Fortune,
Here.
Alderman Crawford,
Here.
Alderman Stokel.
Okay, we have an agenda for tonight's meeting that has been posted,
We need to amend it.
and there is an amendment,
7C.
which is the item C, fiscal year 2024 financial audit. Is there a motion to approve the amended agenda?
Motion to approve the amended agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Any citizen comments at this time? Nothing? Okay. We have a consent agenda, regular meeting minutes from June 4th, a bills list from May 31st to June 20th, and an annual report to the board, 2025 bond compliance. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda or discussion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved. Report of committees, financial report, Dave Watson.
If you'd like Alan to go first.
So he can leave?
Yeah.
Okay.
That works.
No argument here.
You don't want to sit through our financials?
About as much as you want to sit through this, right? Well, thanks for having me. My name's Alan Schulte. I've worked on the city's audit for a number of years. One of the big changes you'll probably notice is the logo. Bots Deal is now part of UHY, which is a much larger audit firm, a couple thousand employees in the United States. So our hope is that we'll have access to some more staff. It's kind of a struggle for small firms like we were to find staff, and then access to some more technology. They got some cool AI stuff and different things. So we're hoping, things will improve because of it. So to the financial statements, the city prepares an ACFR, which we used to call a CAFR. They rearranged the letters a few years ago. And what that means is you send it into the GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association, and they do a review and then issue a certificate of financial reporting excellence. So we did that last year. We got it back, and we got the certificate. The city received an unmodified or clean opinion from us, which means everything is fairly stated in accordance with GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. The CAFR has several sections. There's the transmittal letter, the introductory section in the beginning, and that's written by city staff, and we kind of just review it to make sure nothing's way out in the left field. Gives you a little more, where is the city going kind of information, followed by the management discussion and analysis. And what that kind of designed to do is to say, well, here's what the numbers were last year at a high level, here's what they are this year, and why did they change? So you can see a little bit of that in we call MD&A. Then that's followed by the government-wide financial statements. So that's on page 11 and 12. And one of the strange things about governmental accounting is you basically have two sets of financial statements. So 11 and 12 are kind of big picture, longer term. So you have fixed assets, you have debt, you have, in your case, a net pension asset. So those things are on what we call the government-wide. A single column presentation and things like that. So then on 13 and 15, are what we call the fund statements. So that's kind of what you're used to seeing, general fund, bridge fund, capital improvements fund. And that takes a shorter term view. So that's a little closer to how you could think of your checkbook. I bought a car, I wrote a check, it's an expense, right? I borrowed money to buy a car, the money came into my checkbook, and I wrote the check out. So that's kind of how things flow through this. So it's close to cash basis, but not quite cash basis. There's no depreciation in there. Debt payments are an expense, so the principal and the interest are an expense in that presentation. It's kind of based on what we call major funds. So if any fund makes up more than like 10% of assets, liabilities, revenues, then it gets listed individually. You had one fund that didn't meet that criteria, so it's still kind of listed individually. But if you had 6 or 7 of them that were really small, they might end up in that last column. So then you have the general fund, which is kind of your operations fund, and then your other funds are kind of designed to account for restricted resources. So I get a sales tax for capital improvements. I get, road and bridge tax. I would keep that in the road and bridge fund so that you can kind of makes it easier to show, hey, I spent it for the purpose that was intended. The general fund collects about 55% of revenue. In total, the capital improvements and parks collect about 20% each. The general fund has about 55% of the assets. Capital improvements and parks hold about 20%. And those percentages are all pretty consistent with last year. Not a lot of big changes. Next section is the footnotes. I usually don't go through those. There's just some detail about, basis of accounting, a little more detail about fixed assets, some detail about the debt. One thing it does kind of show is what your future principal and interest payments are for the next 5 years, so you can kind of see those requirements, then the budget. The city was under budget on all the funds. There's some pension schedules. And then in the end, and this is kind of the nicest part about doing the GFOA report, is there's the statistical section that gives you like 10 years of information. So you can kind of better see where you were 10 years ago and over the years and now. So I'm going to run back up to the front.
No, okay. I can do that
I
fast.
know. So on page 6, there's the first table there. Oh, and not the PDF 6. Yeah, that actually.
Actual page 6. Here? No?
Maybe one more. Should be maybe table 1.
Oh, table 1. There?
There you go. Yep.
Got
So this is on that government-wide basis I talked about. So fixed assets, debt, and all that's in here. There was an increase in current assets. Most of the increase was just taxes receivable. So money just came in a little slower than the prior year, or to some degree, sales tax was just a little higher this December compared to last December. Okay, on the next table, everything else pretty much, no big changes. So this is income statement side. So revenues, your revenue was up $330,000, which is about 21%. Again, just an increase in sales taxes mostly. They were up about 20%. Total expenses decreased 1%. So that's nice. You had an increase in revenue and a decrease in expenses. Just a little bit lower wages and a few things, with that gap in the city clerk position for a little bit. All right, so now if we go to page 15, this is the fund statements. So this is kind of what you're used to seeing on a regular basis. Yeah, there you go.
This is it?
Yeah, so Usually the thing I kind of talk about here is general fund balance versus general fund expenditures. So your fund balance covers about 730 days of expenses. So if no more money came in, you could cover 2 full years of expenses, okay? And since most of your revenue is sales tax, that's really pretty good. Because if you're a heavy property tax city, that all comes in at the end of the year. So then by the time you got to like August or September, it would probably be dwindled down. But since you get a flow every month, maybe it's a little bigger at the end of the year with Christmas and stuff, but for the most part, money's coming in every month. So that's a really nice cushion based on your revenue streams. Capital improvements, that's mostly used to pay the loan on building. And then it also covers some of the costs in the room fund. Okay, so now I'll go to page 36. And I usually talk about this one because this is nothing you really see on a normal basis. So this is the schedule, and it comes from loggers, but it shows the pension information. So the top section there is the estimated liability to pay pension benefits. So at the end of, and this is as of June 30, because that's when they do the valuation. The liability is about $527,000. You guys have $576,000 contributed to loggers to pay those benefits, which means you have a net asset of $49,000. So it's a little counterintuitive that an asset's a negative number here, but they do it because most places have a pension liability. So if you have a negative number and a pension asset, you're kind of unusual. Now, loggers does a really good job, and most places with loggers have a net pension asset. But you guys are really solid because you can see over the last 10 years, it's been an asset, 8 of the 10 years. So you're kind of, more so than looking at any one year in particular, you kind of just want to watch the trend, So you're solidly 100% funded almost every year. The next page shows what loggers want you to contribute versus what you actually contributed. You can see you guys hit it every year except for that one squirrely year there. And then that last column shows you as a percentage of payroll what your contribution is. So you contribute about 8% a year of salaries to loggers. Okay. All right, then I'll have you jump ahead to page 44. And then these are some of the schedules that I was mentioning as far as what the GFOA report kind of has. That's kind of helpful. So you can see the 10 years of information. Revenues increased about 50% over that 10-year period. Total expenditures also increased about 50%. But if you take out the debt payment, which is finite, it's really only up about 35%. So you're keeping up with the trend. The revenue's keeping up with the trend in expenditures, and at some point that debt service expenditure will go away. Okay. Any financial statement questions? All right. Just kind of real quick, management report. So there's a letter in there. That's our management report. It's pretty much all boilerplate, and it's a separate letter. It just says you're responsible for the information, wishing opinion based on what you're providing us. Financial statements include estimates, so depreciation, compensated absences to a very small degree, pensions are big. estimate. You know, we didn't have any disagreements with management. You know, everything really went pretty smooth. You know, we really just get what we use with April versus Frank, honestly. You know, Dave's great to work with. So that's kind of what's in there. Any questions about that?
So you found no issues, no concerns?
No, not really. You guys do a good job. I mean, having Dave involved helps give you that little bit of extra internal control that, you know, the city your size sometimes doesn't have. So, you know, and he doesn't have access to checks or deposits or anything, and he's doing the bank reconciliation. So if April was trying to pull some shenanigans, he'd be able to see it. So it works really well.
Anything we could do to improve?
Honestly, no, I think you guys, I mean, the records are all in great shape when we get here. We don't have trouble finding any invoices or anything like that. That's like, and you're always prepared when we get here. When we have places where we like show up and they're like, what would you like us to give you? How about that big long list of stuff that I sent you?
Here's a box of paper.
Right. So, yeah, no, really, I think, you know, I mean, we've been doing it for a while, and anytime we have a suggestion, I mean, you guys always do your best to implement it. You know, I think, you know, you guys have gotten on the, you know, moving money to get some interest. You know, some places were a little slow to react to that because it was, you know, it wasn't worth the time for so long, and then all of a sudden you're missing out on, you know, 4 or 5%, you know, a year. But you guys address that. Yeah.
Any other questions?
All right, so the last thing, I would like to collect your financial statements because Dave did find a little mistake in the back. So we will make the correction and send you some new ones. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellen.
Thank you. And if you need anything for the CAFR application. And I'll get you. Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, all right, and then I'll send you a final one.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Dave, you're up.
More knobs on that. So we have the financial statements for the first 5 months of 2025. And all of the numbers in the fund balance and that Alan was talking about are synced up with these statements now. He made a few adjustments and to make sure they're all coordinated. So the beginning balance that he spoke of, of all the funds, $2,461,475 is reflected in these numbers. And it has been over the last couple of months, so there's been changes there as a result of the audit. And we continue to see a nice flow of revenue. At the end of May, take the cash and the certificates of deposit on page 1 there together. It's $2.4 million. It's a very healthy number. The fund balances through May 31st, we've added about $300,000 to the number at year end. So we have almost $2.8 million at the end of May. Now, we're going to be spending some money here shortly, so we don't really want to get too thrilled with that. But if you look on page 2, statement of revenues, expenditures, and change in fund balance for the first 5 months, we brought in $835,746 and spent about $518,000. Again, sales tax is way up. We're going to see a major hit in June. The June number is way down. So it's going to start leveling off to reality from what happened at the beginning of the year. So just the distribution, it's healthy. We've been looking at the deep into the sales tax numbers. And if you look on page 3, you can see the trend there in sales tax and way up. It's going to level off quite a bit because we just have the way the state has distributed the money for their local sales tax and for the capital improvement sales tax and the stormwater. Those big payers have been kind of getting their reports in, and more so than last year. So it's going to level out in June. But you can see, even if you look back in 2019, our sales tax has been very healthy. A lot of it is because of the mix of businesses. It's very consistent. Grocery sales and hardware sales, restaurants, and with the addition of the hardware store and the new restaurant, it's very healthy. And we would expect it to continue that way. Now on the expenditure side, expenditure's down a little bit because we just haven't spent the capital improvement money yet, but that's obviously coming. The administrative costs are up a little because we've allocated more of some of the salaries toward administrative that we're going to roads, and the same with parks. We've allocated a little bit more to parks than we were. I think we all agreed that the maintenance people were working more in parks and doing some city hall maintenance and less so on road. But overall, those expenditures are pretty much in line with what they've been. Of course, police is a part of the cost. It's right on target with the contract with the county. And the debt service we paid, the first semi-annual payment has been paid.
Dave, when we get extra police for like 3rd of July, is that the same line item?
I don't know where, are we
we-
paying the county for extra police?
For the
I really
extra
don't know.
patrols,
It's
we
not-
do, don't we? Isn't that contracted outside of our contract
Yes.
services, and it goes in the event itself?
Yeah, it's not
The
in
cost
this
of the-
number.
yeah.
It would be in that number.
Yeah.
If there's any payment, I'm just not sure how much that is offhand. The last page is where we are with the budget. This is the budget as it stands right now. And if everything came in on budget and that we spent everything, we would end the year with $2.5 million. That number in the lower right-hand corner of that schedule. These numbers are reflective of what was adopted at the end of last year for 2025. We know we're going to have to amend the capital improvement budget at some point, and that will be an increased number. So we're not going to end up at $2.5 million, but fairly comfortable that we're going to make the revenue numbers and the other expenditure numbers look pretty much on track. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. Is there a park committee report tonight?
Yes, I'm going to give
Okay,
park committee report. We met and we reviewed the movie night in May, and everybody was excited and happy with the dessert truck, Lily's dessert truck. They did very well. Everybody enjoyed The Sandlot. It seemed to be a very family-friendly movie, so everybody was happy with that. We did discuss the concert that was on June 14th, and it was with a new band, Rogers and Ninehouse. And our main concern was, at that time, was the weather. So we discussed how we would proceed with that and decided that we were going to make the decision at noon on Saturday, if we were going to proceed with the concert that evening. Luckily, everything turned out, it stopped raining, it dried out, and we were able to have a wonderful evening with the band. Everybody seemed to really enjoy it, it was well attended, and again, we had a full food truck, and that too did excellent down at the park, and so I'm hoping that this is gonna give us a good start to having food trucks at all of our events down there. We reviewed Family Fun Day, and we did decide on, I went ahead and reserved bounce houses, the bungee jump, that Euro bungee jump that everybody really enjoys. We're gonna add a fast pitch baseball game that's out there, and also a ride that the committee had agreed upon, which is called the Wizard, where you get on either side and push and pull and spin each other around really fast, and, you know, make yourself sick. Great fun. And Jake is going to be helping me assess that we can get all of these games and rides in our space down there. The July 3rd, we're doing the prep for that. I'm going to be going over with Jake to see all the decorations, and Cindy and Janet are going to be decorating the pavilion on the 2nd, probably about 11 in the morning, and anybody who would like to come down, join them, they'll get all that decorated plenty of time for our big fireworks event. And Cindy did mention that with Scott Latham and Carl Holmes, that Holmes has been very ill, so we don't know who will be performing with Scott Latham, but he always has. He always, I mean, he's a professional. He will have somebody there that will do a good job. I did contact Mike Hirsch for his sound system to broadcast the music. And he said that he's not physically able to do that any longer. So I'm not sure what our next option is, if there is one, or if we're just gonna let that go, but I wanted to let you know that that's what we had going on. And the committee also did discuss changes to the park rental, the pavilion rental, to see if they wanted to make any changes in that, and they do. With all the work that we're doing down at the park, they would like to raise the fee from $50 to $100. And they're also very interested in being able to move that to a more online reservation instead of calling it to the office. And I know that with discussions with April to upgrade our current website, that hopefully we'll be able to have that completed by next year. And then Dennis was at the meeting, and he attended, and he really would like to do a competition or a contest to name the Great Blue Heron.
To do what?
To name the Great Blue Heron that is down at the park.
So, did he know at that time about?
No,
Or
no, he did not.
it's
But I just
replacement.
thought that I would let Jake
Jake's gonna make that announcement
Right,
during his
bad
report.
news.
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
the crowds. And that was it.
Well, I've gotten dozens of comments about Rogers, and very positive comments, unsolicited, about Rogers and Ninehouse. People love that band.
And I was.
Pass that along to Cindy, please.
I will. I'm very happy about that. Both Cindy and I, people kept coming up to us, and I was surprised too, because they were coming up. I had my Twin Oaks shirt on, so people were coming up and talking to me and saying, "Hey, did you put this on? This is fantastic. Keep it coming." So
Yeah.
I like hearing that.
So we're not gonna have a sound system.
Well, we have some,
Not to broadcast the fireworks music, because that's what Mike did, but I mean, you won't have a sound system with the band.
we have
Yeah,
some
but we had
options here.
speakers
Yeah.
throughout the park.
Yeah.
That we're not gonna have.
We're not gonna, I don't know, I mean, if you go to a sound system, people that do that, it's expensive, and I doubt that we'd be able to get anybody at this short notice for the third.
We were gonna look into the speakers that we have here to see if we could make something work with what we have.
I think we've tried that. It didn't work very well.
Well, Jake and I are pretty tech savvy, so let us try and see if we can't figure something out. And also, they will be doing the FM broadcasting again.
Okay,
So
that's good.
that will be an option for anybody who wants to hear the music. They can bring their own radio and sync it up wherever you are.
Oh, so I saw Dennis the other day. He asked me to pass along whether or not we had gotten his music synced up with the fireworks.
His requests
The music
were
is set.
submitted. The playlist
Wanna let
is
you know.
set.
Everybody liked last year's music. Okay. Is that it? Okay. No old business, new business. We talked last time about nominating a hearing officer for code enforcement. Been thinking about that? Anybody have any nominations? I think we said it shouldn't be a board member. But at the same time, we have to keep in mind, it should be somebody that understands our code. So does anybody have any nominations?
The first person that comes to my mind would be Roger Loesch. I think he probably has a pretty good idea of the codes. And,
I'm sorry, Joe. Are you-
Roger.
Okay.
We probably have somebody else sitting in the room who has a pretty good idea of the code. We have Paul Brockman.
He's like, no.
Not interested? Anybody have anybody else?
You're not an option,
No.
because we had talked about that.
Yeah, I don't think it's appropriate for the mayor to be the code enforcement officer.
And April,
Well, and to be clear, it's not the code enforcement officer, it's just the person who
Hearing.
would preside over the hearings. So the tricky thing with me doing it is that it may be me in some instances that is gathering said evidence of code enforcement. So then I couldn't be an impartial hearing officer in that situation.
Could it be our attorney?
Yeah, it'd be cool because then I could like put on the evidence and say, yes, that's a good point.
Yeah, right.
I like that.
Yeah.
Do you object to yourself?
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
he's the closest we got to a judicial.
You're right.
Tim, you have any ideas?
No, I thought Paul Brockman would be awesome, since his comments were great, but he put the.
He's put the kibosh on that.
I think he did.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it either. But,
We couldn't twist your arm, huh?
No, there's a lot to this whole big broader issue of code enforcement, always has been for years and years. As we mentioned in the last meeting, that consistency is a big issue. I can reflect back on all kinds of situations, not so much we didn't have people on staff or we didn't contract with the right people when big projects came along, and I look at some of the projects, not so much residential, but more commercial, and I see things that should have happened that didn't happen, and the next time we had a consultant on board, and they picked up a lot of things, but it's just been slipshod over the years. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what all the smaller municipalities do, Kirkwood and places like that, they're really organized with their inspectors and things like that, but what is smaller municipalities that are 1,000 or less, what do they do?
Yeah.
Yeah, they use the city administrator or the mayor if they have enough distance between those two and what's going on. Larger cities are going to have probably a director of public works or somebody like that, or planning, and they'll be the hearing officer.
So where do you see the holes in this whole system, whether it's residential, commercial? I mean, I heard some of the stuff here in 2 meetings ago and things like that. What do you think are the bigger step back from it? What do you hope to accomplish?
Well, I think right now, the way our code reads, our engineering firm, Ray Frankenberg, is our hearing officer. And Ray is so far removed from Twin Oaks. And I'm not really sure Ray has an in-depth knowledge of our code.
Yeah, I don't think he'd be interested.
So what we're looking for is to replace that. We've never used it.
And we hope to not ever have to have a hearing. I mean, that's the thing to avoid, really, to get to that point where we have to have a hearing with somebody. We hope that.
But the easy ones are if somebody has tall grass. If you can have that first hearing for the year, and if they then are a repeat offender, you could continually send somebody out and mow it after that without continually having the hearings, and then you put a lien on the property, which actually just gets collected by St. Louis County as part of the property tax the next year. So,
Well, really?
yeah. So it's in some of those simpler things, you don't need to overthink it. I mean, having just anybody who could say, yeah, that's tall grass. Those pictures sure show it. Yeah, and it's and then that most people don't show up for the hearings anyway, and so it's kind of a one-sided deal. Other, the more inner suburbs have a lot more issues with, but even out here, dangerous buildings and people whose house caught on fire and they haven't fixed it and it's starting to fall apart. And in those situations, the city really does want to be able to move in and either urge them to get it done themselves, or with the threat of the city doing the demolition and then putting a lien on the property, urging them to get on with it. And if they won't, then sometimes you just have to do it and then put the lien on the property. So it's some larger problems and some very small ones like grass. So, but you really only use it on the situations where it's something you're going to do. If you had like a property maintenance issue about somebody's paint peeling or their gutters falling off, 99% of the time the city's not going to go fix people's gutters. So those would just go to municipal court as a citation. And you hope that 1 or 2 or 3 citations is enough to get the message across. But on the things where the city might step in and do the work, such as demolishing a building that's sitting, falling apart for years, or even mowing the grass.
Or removal of dead trees.
Maybe, yeah.
I could see that being
Yeah,
something that
that'd be one that
could
is
potentially
right.
come up.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, do we really need a hearing officer?
Somebody's got to hear. I mean, if you're going to have, it's in your code, so you're going to,
Yeah.
at some point, I think so. I mean, most municipalities, at least for tall grass and stuff like that, will use it.
Paul?
So much of it is so subjective to tall grass. I mean, there's got a house on Boley right now where he doesn't mow any grass. It's all vines and more weeds are growing up, as you get along. But it's, I could walk around this building right now and I can point to something that, as me personally in the manager that I used to do managing buildings, you got a perimeter stone rim about 14 feet up above the ground all around this building. It's all full of mold and algae already. Stone's never sealed properly. Is that really a maintenance issue, an aesthetic issue that should be addressed? And who's calling you out on it versus somebody else or apartments across the street. I don't know if it's stone or if it's a board fascia, but it's just full of mold all the way around the perimeter of there, you know, and that stuff lets go for too long and then it starts to get expensive and then nobody wants to do anything about it. It's just, you know, the condo had a roof that had a tarp over it for what, 9 months, if not longer. You know, I understand there's issues with insurance companies and things like that, but still, you know, it's aesthetically it took away from that part of the village or the city for that period of time. Is it worth going and complaining about it? I don't know. My gut feeling is there's been some things that people have nitpicked in the past that weren't major, but got nitpicked and addressed, and others,
Yeah.
you know, never received any attention in the light of day. And how do you balance it? Do you make massive lists?
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is. It's not easy.
Yeah, I don't think we've talked about the businesses being compliant at all. We've mostly just talked about residential, you know? And that's just educating the public, I think, that we have a code. I would venture to say.
Well, you know, another thing that just drives me crazy, these people want my business across the street over here, but you drive in the main drive and where they trenched across the driveway for some utility after the fact, that's a significant dip in the road, and it's jarring on my car. I guess you can say it's a speed bump. On the other hand, I think it's crappy maintenance. You know, it's all perspective.
Well, and to some extent, this whole discussion came about because of the issue up on Crescent, right? I mean,
Not really.
that was kind of my perception once.
No.
It was definitely the squishy wheel.
No, I made the point that in our code, Ray Frankenberg has been our hearing officer for years, and we haven't seen Ray Frankenberg for years. And I didn't feel it was appropriate to continue to have Ray as that hearing officer.
Yeah, obviously we need to do something.
I don't think Ray ever did a hearing.
We haven't had a hearing, no.
So I don't know how you.
So I said it was inappropriate for me to be the hearing officer. I don't know if everybody feels that way. It's just my feeling personally. I would be more than happy to do it if it's appropriate, but I don't know that it is.
It's certainly done.
I think it would be if you would be interested.
Since it never happens, yeah.
It doesn't happen.
I have a feeling in many cases I become kind of the hearing officer because I do get involved in a lot of these. That's why I thought that maybe I shouldn't be, because sometimes I have to intervene in some of these issues.
Well, I think you could do that from a neutral position.
If it's a matter of running a meeting, a hearing, I mean, that's,
Don't you have some sort of court system? Why doesn't, I'm way out of my league here, why doesn't it go to the court system you have now?
It does. Like I said, it's usually, if compliance is all you're going for and a fine will do it, and it's not something that the city is actually going to step in and use its resources to actually correct the nuisance, then it will go to municipal court. And we use municipal court for that. But if it's something that the city would use, possibly use its own resources to correct, then that would have to go through this administrative process to put yourself in that position. It's all theoretical right now because, like everybody said, it's never been used, but it is available, and you just want to be able to use it if necessary. I think it would get used more if you got more comfortable with how it works.
Mhm.
So the clerk would write the letter to the person, the violation person, asking them to fix it. Is that right? And then If they don't fix it in a matter of time, then it would go to a hearing.
Yeah, I think it's here. I can pull up the code.
It's kind of a two-step process. The first one kind of says nicely to take care of an issue. And then the second one says you didn't do it within the time frame. And so on this date, there's going to be a hearing where you can put on evidence and you can be represented by counsel and all that stuff. Or if you get it corrected by that date, let us know and the hearing will get canceled. So that's kind of how it's set up. Some cities use a one-letter process and says, get it done by this date, or a hearing will be held on X date.
Go up to the top again.
This is it, right? Abatement.
Mm-hmm.
It was defining the hearing officer.
Sorry, I didn't mean to get into that. Dismissed.
I don't think the hearing officer says who it is. I think it's
Yeah.
very vague.
Yeah, the hearing officer just says in the definitions here, you mean, where it says, yeah, a qualified person
That's
appointed
what,
annually.
and that's what we were saying. It's like, you haven't done an appointment in 100 years.
Right.
So
Right,
you need to
right.
appoint someone.
But this is the procedure that we were talking about, so. And this is, again, just in the nuisance code, so this would only be for, like, Paul mentioned, like, tall grass, dead trees, things
Yeah.
like that, so. It would be, so the difference in my mind, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong here, Paul, but it would be something that we would want to see taken care of and not wait for the process of the municipal court, because that takes a long time. So in the meantime, it never gets abated and the grass continues to grow and grow and grow while we're waiting for the municipal court, and they set a hearing date, and then the person doesn't show up, and then they get 30 more days. And so it would be a situation where we would not want to wait through that.
And then they
Court
get 30
person-
days to
Then they get
correct
30
it.
more days, yeah, and the tree is dying more, or it falls over, or the grass is, waist high at that point. We would want to correct it before we could get through that length of time. So this gives us a shorter amount of time, so 10 days.
Best case scenario then is that the violator fixes
Within the 10 days,
within the letter period.
correct.
Yeah, it's a shorter time frame for tall grass.
Right.
It's a different section, a little farther down. It's 4 days for that. But
Oh, for grass, okay.
right. All of these are not the process of the two letters and stuff, but the authority to have these procedures comes from state law for cities. And so that's why there's different procedures sometimes for different things, because they get added to the state statutes at different times and have different rules, because nobody reads the statutes before they write a new statute.
Is there anybody that's previously served like planning and zoning or on board that might be interested, that anybody knows of?
Well, we had one nomination of Roger. And I guess the question there would be, would that be an appropriate appointment, being chairman of the planning and zoning?
Probably doesn't,
Doesn't
the
matter.
two don't really overlap.
Okay,
I mean, it's possible that, there could be some zoning violation that,
and I don't know that he would
Not likely.
accept it either.
I would think you'd want to talk to somebody before you sign
But he
it.
would be good at it. I think he would.
So do you want to table it and we'll talk to Roger? And in the meantime, if you have any more ideas. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. No discussion items, attorney's report.
Okay, so if the governor signs some of the legislation that went through this session by June 30th, and it becomes law, there's a couple that are a little bit interesting for Twin Oaks. One is, and it's that now the names and addresses and email addresses and everything of people who rent the pavilion and stuff like that is now closed information. So that'll be something that we have to now start putting that in a different file over at City Hall so that you keep it apart.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you do that when you are reserving a pavilion to be able to, I mean, I put a last name?
Oh, well, you put it in there, but you just, if somebody tries to.
No, that we do that and
We
we
post
post
it.
it
Post
on there so that it says
Right. And
Smith.
all I'm saying is that people cannot send you
That's not true.
a records request saying, I want the names and addresses and phone numbers of everybody that rented it last year so
Okay.
that I can solicit them for business
Oh.
or whatever. I don't know why. I don't know exactly the reasons. Also, it was, they clarified the fact that now that when somebody makes a records request to a city, that it's clear that the fee, we all knew that the law said that you could charge for fees ahead of time, but the AG was being a little fishy about that, so they clarified that yes, you can charge ahead of time before you give them the records so that you get them. And then they added something which is really helpful for city clerks, which is to say, and if they don't pay it within 90 days, you can treat it as being withdrawn. Which before it was like nobody knew what to do with it. It was, you had this request, you had these records, and how long do you have to sit there waiting for somebody to pay before you're not violating sunshine by not giving it to them? So that's pretty helpful that they put that in there.
Do we have a fee? What is our fee?
Well, for copies, it's 10 cents because that's what the law says.
Page?
Yeah, a page. And then for research time, it's staff's actual salary, their cost to do it, whether it's, a half an hour or whatever. And similar for somebody standing, if you had to stand at a copy machine and make it. There's not that much of that done anymore because a lot of the records are electronic, so it's more pressing a button, which is where that clarification is helpful because the law used to say that it said fees for copying, can be, and it's like, okay, but that's not how it's done anymore. So they took the word copying out because it's like,
You still charge them 10 cents a page if it's a PDF,
well, if you printed it out for sure,
but not.
yeah. But otherwise, most cities don't. They just
We've never
charge
charged anybody.
It's the research time that a lot of times is the waste of time. Other thing to know is that you cannot, if somebody sets up, if a person under the age of 18 sets up like a stand for ice cream or lemonade, you can't make them get a business license. So that's a great thing. So stop doing that.
Oh,
And then the other one that Dave might be
They've been
interested in.
really busy down there.
Yeah, they have. There's a new single bank pooled collateral section that has been added. So this might be a new alternative to the collateralization of city accounts, where there's this new state. The state has, maybe it's the treasurer or whatever, has set up a way that you could now collateralize. It's different than the way banks do it now. So I think it's going to be something that we see a lot of city accounts being collateralized that way, starting after August when this becomes law. So keep an eye out for that one, Dave and April. That's all I got.
Okay.
Public Works.
All right. Jake's up finally.
Hello, everyone. So,
Jake says, well, why didn't you put me at the beginning of the
I
meeting?
know. I thought about that. I'll actually rearrange the agenda so that you don't have to stay. I mean, you're not going to be at the top, but maybe
Yeah,
3 up.
so Public Works maintenance updates. We did hire a new guy, Joe, and he's doing a great job. He's just on vacation this week, but other than that, he's doing an awesome job. Having a couple guys do whatever we need to do around the city. It's awesome. I had my plumber come out and he actually did cap that water fountain down there at the park, so it's not running like crazy right now, but it's just kind of we're doing that until he gets the bid over so we can get in there and dig up everything and actually tear it out. So just waiting on that. We did do some more landscaping in the park, and then working on potholes. Didn't really get to that quite yet, but there are some potholes on Crescent Avenue we're going to hit.
There's a big one on Merrimack Station too.
Yeah. Should we hit that? I know which one you're talking about. Is it the one by like the
It's like in the middle of the road.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I know. I've been looking at that thing. I just wasn't sure about it, so,
We'll start making a list.
yeah. Anything as far as that goes. will
Yeah,
help
Crescent's
out.
got some as well.
I just know how busy that road is, and we can get John to help us out whenever.
That repair may be beyond,
Yeah, it's pretty, I know.
we may need to get some people out to do that.
And there's one coming up the hill here too. I'm not sure. I know we probably need to hit it, but it is concrete, Project updates for the roof replacement and everything too. Martin and Sons is still, he's trying to get the whole house re-sided, so we're just waiting on a bid. Or having them hear back from the insurance company, so, but he is working on that, so. Intersection project, we did get all the planners, they arrived, they're huge. And they are down there, we got them installed today, we have everything in them. There's a self-watering thing in there, should be really nice to help out with the water. Should help out a lot, but I guess we'll see. But it is ready for plants and everything, so.
Looks small after you moved them.
That's what I said, but they look great, and they are covering village.
Yeah.
So that was the goal
Covers up pretty well,
of
so
the
make sure you
planters.
check those out. Park mulching and stuff down at the park, planting. We added a bunch of new plants at the split rail section, edged a lot of it and just kind of cleaned it all up. There's a lot of weeds and a lot of stuff, so it's looking a lot better along that split rail. We also power washed underneath all the tables on the left side, and so cleaned that up a lot on that exposed aggregate, and then around the comfort station and all that area too. Sad news from the lake, we did lose the great blue heron Bill, is what we kind of called him. And we got rid of him a couple weeks ago. And then today, John did say that we do have some good news, and then we did have another great blue heron down there. So
We're gonna replace
So what
it.
happened to
Get
the
a
old one?
replacement.
Yeah,
He perished.
we
Do we
took
know
him
why,
and
though?
threw him in the trash.
Probably he
Okay.
was old.
Unfortunately.
Old age.
Something got him?
Herons don't last forever.
Yeah,
yeah, but it wasn't like a coyote or a
No,
fox.
no, I don't
Heat?
think so.
Maybe?
Caddy.
He had a great long life and the
Yeah.
enjoyable times in the park and just
I think we got a
peacefully went to
name.
sleep and died.
And
Deceased.
It's a good thing.
How do you get the name Bill?
And then Paula did want me to show you guys all this for Dennis. We have a plaque
Okay.
for down at the pavilion.
Good, that's good.
Putting that up, and maybe, I guess we'll be showing it on the third.
Do you want to make the announcement on the 3rd about this, or do you want to do it at a different event, or?
Different.
Okay, you don't want to do it on the 3rd?
No.
Okay,
The July, what's the next concert?
August.
August, with it in August.
Okay.
Anyone have any questions or concerns, anything for me?
Gonna get on that mold around the,
I'm gonna load that down.
I'm gonna have you help me. All right, thank you guys.
okay. City clerk report.
Okay. Mostly what I have are project updates real quick.
Thanks, Paul.
Just a reminder that we will have that mid-year capital improvement budget meeting next Wednesday. I know they're not listening. Bang the gavel. Children. Okay, we will have the mid-year capital improvement budget amendments meeting. That'll be a lunch meeting on Wednesday, July 2nd, 11:30. Also, we'll do a quick fireworks planning meeting too. So I did post the agenda, or I put it in. I'll be sending that out for you. We've had a couple little issues with the park lighting. So just some installation issues, but they're coming back to correct those. So installation issues. So they're going to move the outlets that are currently now 18 feet in the air to a more accessible location down low, as we requested. So that'll be happening hopefully before the 3rd. That is the plan, to get all those lights up and running and the outlets moved before the 3rd.
Are those lights on motion sensors?
They are at night, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so we have the ability to control them via our phones remotely or from here, and we can set schedules, we can dim them.
Yeah.
We're setting the schedule to run at night from dusk basically until park closing, so 10 p.m. And then after that, they're more like a security light. So if someone walks under them, then they come on after that.
Okay.
So that is the tentative plan now. We can change it at any time.
I guess there's probably some bugs being worked out. There was one that was
Flickering
Flashing,
on
yeah,
and
that's
off,
the one
so-
they're working on. Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
okay.
Yeah. So they've got some bugs to work
Yeah,
out
gotcha.
to get that done before the 3rd. So that's the update on that. Good news on the Boley entrance. They finally got the county to sign off on the fiber fix that they had been working on. So I know we had several complaints that there had not been work there for a few days, and that's because the county was both working on site and off site to get that line running again. So they were still working on testing the line and things like that. So just because there wasn't someone there didn't mean that they weren't working on it. And they wanted to make sure everything was going and working again before they poured the concrete back. So the contractor talked to me today. They're going to prep for the pour tomorrow, and then they will pour it on Friday. So that will be and then Monday they will do the last asphalt patching that needs to be done. And then Tuesday they will stripe. So that should be the conclusion of that project. I've already talked to Jake about plants. So we have some plans for getting that rocked in and planted. And I did talk to the contractor about you working kind of in tandem with them. He said that's fine. So we'll have that all cleaned up and ready to go before the 3rd, because that was the hard deadline on that project. So I know everybody will be happy to have the cones down and whatnot. So it's going to look great. It's going to look really great when it's all done. So the other thing is that the other contractor has come back finally to fix their defective work on Crescent. So this will be the 3rd time. They've got it's partially finished, so they're working over there right now. They've got some more fixes to make. So I'm hoping we'll get that project wrapped up relatively soon. So it's been 9 months in the work. So like Dave said, we have a lot of capital that we have not spent, that we intended to spend, and I had planned for it to be sort of in a more sequential pattern rather than all 3 projects finishing the week before the July 3rd, but here we are. So we're getting those done. And then I don't have any changes on the Merrimack Station sidewalk connector. We'll talk more about Crescent Avenue asphalt at the capital budget, because we are continuing to get complaints about the asphalt on Crescent, which it does need to be overlaid, but you know, it's going to be a significant expense. So we'll have to talk about that at the budget amendment meeting next week. So any questions for me? Okay, thanks.
I am continuing my quest to try to get things straightened out over on Crescent. I had another 2-hour meeting today. About all I will say about it is that I outlined to them exactly what is expected of them and what is required of them to continue their work in terms of preparing development plans, et cetera, and reapplying for new permits and what the process is going to be moving forward for us looking at these projects and approving these projects. They have committed to me that they are going to be following these procedures, so we'll see. I do know that the plans, it's not all a wish thing. I have seen some of the plans that they are preparing to submit, and they were on the phone today while I was there with the civil engineer, telling him what plans they needed for the 66 property. So they are making an effort to get all of their documentation in order for us, and we'll see what they submit. I expect they did have one question for me though, Paul, on their development plan. You know, there's a cost of $100 per copy for all the engineering drawings. We require 18. And they wanted to know if they could submit one to be reviewed to see if it was adequate. And
Right.
before they copy all the
Yes,
rest
the
of it.
reason for the numerous ones is for the boards and commissions to look at those. But yes, I would recommend that they give us a digital copy and one hard copy originally, so that we, BFA, whoever needs to look at it, can give initial comments, so that it's not a waste. Because I guarantee it's going to have to get revised in some shape. They always do, and I'm not
Yeah.
saying that has nothing to do with them. It has to do with the fact that everybody always finds something. Oh, a little mistake here, or doesn't. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yes,
Okay,
that's
good.
fine.
So what
They
they
could
will,
also give some smaller ones.
what they will plan to do is, actually, I do have a digital copy now. But what they will do is submit one plan for us, and they will give us the additional copies when we say we have sufficient information, et cetera. So they don't have to do it multiple times.
And does that go to planning and zoning then?
Okay, I explained to them the process, which they will submit a site development plan, which is very detailed, specific about what information they need to supply. Once that is supplied to us, we will review it. And if it's appropriate, we will, I guess, have BFA look at it.
This is on the website for anybody
Yeah,
who wants to look
there's
at
a-
it right here. There's
yeah,
a really
went through
clean
this
and clear
process
step by
with them
step.
today. Tells you all the steps that are followed, including planning and zoning review, public hearing review, where people will have the opportunity to come to the meeting and make comments or suggestions about their plan. So went through all of that information with them today. They understood what's required, and they were willing to follow the procedure. So we'll see what happens.
So yes, in that situation, we would certainly have BFA review those plans.
So that's all I had to report on that. I thought Paul was going to bring this up because there's been so much going on with the projects and everything else. I do still want to get to the homeowner on Boley to try to talk to them about getting a maintenance agreement or something so that we can take care of all those bushes at the entrance to Boley. I do still plan on doing that. So it's getting kind of out of hand.
Is that the picket fence?
Yeah.
The picket
Yeah.
fence.
So Paul, once I do talk to him about it, then I guess we'll draft something up.
Mhm.
So I'll put that on my back burner. And I would like to just say that I appreciate April's work this week. It's been a very trying work. She got through it, I think.
Thanks. Yeah. By the skin of my teeth, but yeah.
It's been one of those weeks when we heard from everybody. So that's all I have. Joe?
Nothing this evening.
Jim, nothing?
Just the way we were headed with the Crescent debacle up there, if you will, and headed towards legal action. I'm really happy with you taking the reins on this thing and getting it resolved before we had to make permanent enemies.
Well, it's worth the effort if we can get it done.
Yes.
I'm not saying we are going to get it done, but we will at least have tried
Absolutely.
from our end.
Yes.
And either it happens or it doesn't happen. I hope, and I have confidence at this point in time that they're going to follow what we're telling them to do. We'll see.
But it is definitely the right way to go.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Anything else? Okay. Any,
YouTube
Public-
comments? Nope. No emojis, no nothing.
okay, no final citizen comments. We are ready to adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn? I'll see everybody on July 2nd.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. All in